unlimited drama series.
People always say, trust is everything in a marriage. I say trust is what gets you stabbed in the back with a glittery high heel while you're busy believing in fairy tales. My name is Jared Solis, and I'm about to tell you how I learned that lesson the hard way on Christmas Eve. I work insurance fraud investigation, which means I spend my days catching liars, cheaters, and people who think they're smarter than they actually are. The irony wasn't lost on me when I realized I'd been living with the biggest fraud of all. The snow was coming down hard outside our suburban home, the kind that makes everything look clean and innocent. Christmas lights twinkled from every house on Maple Street, casting red and green shadows across the pristine white blankets, covering our neighbors' perfectly manicured lawns. Inside, Nira was acting stranger than a $3 bill. "So you're really leaving tonight?" she asked for the fourth time, standing in our bedroom doorway while I packed my overnight bag. Her voice had this weird pitch to it, like she was trying too hard to sound casual. "Conference starts tomorrow morning," I replied, folding my shirts with deliberate precision. "I told you about this weeks ago." Nira shifted her weight from one foot to the other. She was wearing those tight yoga pants that made her legs look incredible, the ones she usually saved for special occasions. For a Tuesday night when her husband was supposedly leaving town, she sure was dressed to impress someone. It's just weird timing, you know? Christmas Eve and all. Insurance fraud doesn't take holidays, sweetheart. I zipped up the bag and turned to face her. Besides, I'll be back tomorrow night. You'll barely notice I'm gone. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. The screen lit up for just a second before she lunged for it, snatching it away faster than a pickpocket at a county fair. "Popular tonight?" I asked. "Just work stuff. Holiday schedule changes." She clutched the phone against her chest like it contained state secrets. Right. Because fitness instructors definitely handle urgent business matters at 9 p.m. on Christmas Eve. I'd been married to Nira for 6 years. 6 years of watching her teach spin classes, of listening to her complain about difficult clients, of pretending I didn't notice how she always seemed to have her phone glued to her hand lately. 6 years of being the steady, reliable husband while she played the free-spirited fitness guru who needed her space to find herself. The thing about investigating fraud for a living is that you develop a sixth sense for when people are lying to you. Their tells become as obvious as neon signs. Nira had been flashing neon for weeks. "I should get going," I said, hefting my bag. "Traffic to the airport will be brutal with the weather." She followed me downstairs, her bare feet silent on the hardwood. I could feel her watching me as I grabbed my keys from the kitchen counter. "Drive safe," she said, giving me a quick peck on the cheek. The kind of kiss you give your brother, not your husband. Always do. I walked out into the swirling snow and tossed my bag into the back seat of my Honda. Through the living room window, I could see Nira already reaching for her phone before I'd even started the engine. The airport was exactly as miserable as I'd expected. Holiday travelers dragged oversized suitcases through slush, while harried airline employees tried to manage the chaos of delayed flights and winter weather advisories. I bought my ticket, checked in, even sent Nira a photo of my boarding pass. Then I walked straight to the rental car counter. "I need something reliable," I told the clerk, a kid who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else on Christmas Eve. "Nothing fancy." 20 minutes later, I was driving a gray sedan back toward the city, windshield wipers fighting a losing battle against the snow. My phone showed 3 missed calls from Nira already. I let them go to voicemail. The Lantern Room sat on the corner of 5th and Morrison, all exposed brick and industrial lighting designed to make rich people feel edgy. It was the kind of place that charged $18 for a cocktail and called it artisanal. Nira had mentioned it exactly once, about 3 months ago, claiming one of her clients had recommended it. I parked across the street with a clear view of the entrance and settled in to wait. The heater in the rental car wheezed like an old man climbing stairs, but it kept the windshield clear enough to see through. My phone rang. Nira again. "Hey, babe," I answered, keeping my voice neutral. "What's up?" "Just wanted to make sure you got to the airport okay. The weather looks terrible." "Made it fine. Flight's delayed about an hour, but nothing too bad." "Oh, good. I was worried." She paused and I could hear music in the background. "Well, I'll let you go. Love you." Love you too. I hung up and checked the time. 9:45. If my suspicions were correct, I wouldn't have to wait much longer. Sure enough, at 10:15, a familiar figure appeared through the swirling snow. Nira, now wearing a black dress I'd never seen before, and heels that definitely weren't designed for navigating icy sidewalks. She moved carefully toward the club's entrance, checking her phone every few steps. My chest tightened, but not with surprise. More like the grim satisfaction of a theory being proven correct. She disappeared inside, and I forced myself to wait. Patience was crucial in fraud investigation. You never moved too fast, never showed your hand, until you had all the evidence you needed. 15 minutes later, another figure emerged from the snow like something out of a bad dream. Kai Dornell, Nira's ex-boyfriend from college. The guy she claimed she'd lost touch with years ago. The guy whose name had started appearing in her phone's search history about 2 months ago. A little detail I discovered while helping her troubleshoot her email account. Kai looked exactly like what he was. A small-time player trying to dress above his station. Expensive coat that probably came from a discount store. Shoes that were all flash and no substance. He strutted toward the club entrance like he owned the place, which, knowing Kai's personality, he probably thought he did. I watched him disappear inside and felt something cold settle in my stomach. Not heartbreak. I'd moved past that weeks ago when the evidence started piling up. This was something else. Something that felt like the moment right before you spring a trap. My phone buzzed with a text from Arden Weller, the bartender at the Anchor, and one of the few people in this city I actually trusted. Your wife just walked in with Pretty Boy. Want me to keep an eye on them? I typed back, please, signal me if anything interesting happens. Arden had been tending bar for 15 years. She'd seen every kind of drama the human heart could produce, and she had zero tolerance for cheaters. When I'd approached her last week with my suspicions, she'd agreed to help without hesitation. Cheaters are like cockroaches, she'd said. Best way to deal with them is to turn on all the lights. Now I sat in my rental car, watching snow pile up on the windshield, and waited for the lights to come on. My phone rang again. This time, it wasn't Nira. They're cozy, Arden's voice was sharp with disgust. Real cozy. She's got her hand on his leg. He's whispering in her ear. They ordered champagne. Champagne? The expensive stuff. Celebrating something looks like. I closed my eyes and let the anger wash over me. Not the hot, explosive kind that makes you do stupid things. The cold, calculating kind that makes you dangerous. Thanks, Arden. I owe you. Just promise me you'll make them both pay for this. Oh, they'll pay. Trust me on that. I hung up and started the car. Time to go home and prepare for the show. The house felt different when I walked back inside. Emptier somehow, like all the warmth had been sucked out through the windows. I dropped my bag by the door and stood in the hallway, listening to the silence. Nira's coffee cup sat on the kitchen counter, lipstick stain on the rim in a shade I didn't recognize. Dark red, almost burgundy. The kind of color you wear when you want to make an impression. I pulled out my laptop and got to work. 6 years of marriage meant I knew all of Nira's passwords, and she'd never been particularly careful about digital security. Her cloud account opened like a book, revealing months of carefully hidden conversations. The messages started innocent enough. Hey, is this Nira from Professor Mitchell's class? That was from August. By September, they'd moved to, it was so great catching up. We should do it again. Again soon. October brought, I can't stop thinking about our conversation. November escalated to things I won't repeat, but let's just say they weren't discussing old college memories. The photos were worse. Nira in outfits I'd never seen, poses that definitely weren't meant for her husband's eyes. Kai responding with pictures of expensive dinners, concert tickets, promises of weekend getaways. I saved everything to a secure folder and kept digging. My phone buzzed. Text from Arden. They just left together. Looked pretty happy about it. I checked the time. 11:30. They'd been in there for over an hour, long enough to make plans, exchange promises, maybe even coordinate their next move. The front door opened while I was printing out screenshots. Neera stumbled in, trying to look casual, but failing spectacularly. Her hair was messed up, her lipstick was gone, and she had that guilty look people get when they've been caught with their hand in the cookie jar. "You're back," she said, too loud and too bright. "How was the flight?" I looked up from my laptop. "Flight? I thought, didn't you say—" She stopped, confusion replacing the fake cheerfulness. "Wait, weren't you supposed to be in Chicago?" "Conference got canceled. Weather." I kept my voice level, conversational. "Turned around at the airport and came home. Good thing, too. The roads are getting pretty bad out there." She stood frozen in the doorway, melting snow dripping from her coat onto the hardwood floor. I could practically see the wheels turning in her head, trying to figure out how much I knew. "Oh," she said finally. That's too bad about the conference." "Yeah, real shame. I was looking forward to it." I closed the laptop and stood up. "How was your evening? You look like you went out." Just grabbed dinner with Lisa." "Nothing exciting." Lisa. Her sister who lived 3 hours away and hadn't visited since Thanksgiving. Another lie to add to the growing pile. "That's nice. Where'd you go?" That new place downtown. The Lantern Room." Points for honesty, I suppose. Or maybe she was just too rattled to come up with a better lie. "Good food?" "Yeah, it was. It was fine." She finally moved from the doorway, hanging her coat in the closet with shaking hands. "I'm pretty tired. I think I'll head to bed." "You do that. I've got some work to catch up on anyway." She paused at the bottom of the stairs. "Jared, is everything okay? You seem different." I smiled at her, the same smile I'd been giving her for 6 years. "Everything's fine, sweetheart. Just tired from all the traveling." She nodded and headed upstairs. I waited until I heard the bedroom door close before pulling out my phone. "Steve, it's Jared. I know it's late, but I need a favor." Steve Loring had been my partner at the insurance company for 3 years. Ex-cop turned fraud investigator, he understood the value of solid evidence and the importance of timing. "What's going on, man? You sound weird." "I need surveillance equipment. The good stuff. And I need it tomorrow." "Christmas Day? Jared, what the hell? My wife is cheating on me. I need proof that'll hold up in court." Silence on the other end, then, "Son of a gun. I'm sorry, buddy. Yeah, I can help you out. What do you need?" "GPS tracker, couple of wireless cameras, maybe a directional microphone if you've got one." "I can do that. Meet me at the office around noon?" "Perfect. And Steve, this stays between us for now." Goes without saying, hang in there, man. I hung up and looked around the living room. 6 years of shared history surrounded me. Wedding photos, vacation souvenirs, the couch we'd picked out together when we first moved in. All of it felt like props in a play I'd been unknowingly performing in. Upstairs, I could hear Neera moving around the bedroom, probably texting Kai, letting him know about the change in plans. I wondered what they'd been planning for tomorrow. A romantic Christmas day while the husband was safely out of town? I opened my laptop again and started a new document. Time to plan my own Christmas surprise. The next morning, Neera was gone when I woke up. She'd left a note on the kitchen counter. "Gone to teach early class. Back this afternoon. Love you." Right. Because fitness centers definitely operate on Christmas Day. I drove to the office and met Steve in the parking lot. He handed me a black duffel bag without asking questions, though I could see the curiosity burning in his eyes. "Everything you need is in there," he said. "GPS tracker has a 2-week battery life and updates every 30 seconds. Cameras are motion activated with 12-hour recording capacity. The microphone has a range of about 50 feet. Thanks, Steve. I owe you big time. Just promise me you'll be smart about this. Don't do anything that'll get you arrested. I'm not planning to hurt anybody. I just want the truth." He nodded, but I could see the concern in his expression. Truth has a way of hurting all by itself. I spent the afternoon installing my surveillance network. GPS tracker went under Nira's car, hidden behind the rear wheel well. One camera went in the living room, disguised as a decorative picture frame. Another went in the bedroom, tucked behind a plant on the dresser. The microphone I placed in her gym bag, she never went anywhere without it, and it would pick up conversations wherever she went. By the time she got home at 4 o'clock, I was sitting in my recliner watching football like nothing had happened. "How was class?" I asked without looking away from the TV. "Good, busy. Lots of people trying to work off their Christmas cookies early." She dropped her bag by the door and headed for the kitchen. "Want some coffee?" "Sure." I watched her move.
90 days of calls to the same number. You bought a burner for her.
Give it to me.
One reason not to drop it.
Watch more on Grammarly.com.
Move around the kitchen, noting the way she kept checking her phone, the way she seemed nervous, jumpy, the way she avoided making eye contact. My phone buzzed with an alert from the GPS tracker. Nira's car had been to 3 locations today: a Starbucks across town, a shopping mall parking lot, and an address I didn't recognize. None of them were her gym. "Hey, Nira," I called out. "Yeah? What's the address of that new fitness center you've been working at?" Long pause. "Why?" "Just curious. Thought I might stop by sometime, see where you work." "Oh, it's way across town. You wouldn't like the drive." I pulled up the GPS data on my phone. The address she'd visited was definitely across town, but according to my quick internet search, it was a residential building. Specifically, a luxury apartment complex called Harbor View Towers. Kai's address, if I had to guess. "Maybe I'll surprise you there sometime," and I said, "No." The response came too fast, too sharp. "I mean, it's really boring. Just a gym. Nothing special." "If you say so." That evening, we sat through dinner like strangers making small talk. Nira pushed food around her plate and checked her phone every few minutes. I made conversation about work, the weather, anything except what we were both really thinking about. After she went to bed, I reviewed the day's surveillance footage. The living room camera had caught her making a phone call while I was in the shower. No audio, but her body language was animated, excited. The bedroom camera showed her trying on 3 different outfits before settling on the black dress from the night before. Most interesting was the audio from the microphone in her gym bag. I put on headphones and listened to her side of several phone conversations. "I can't keep doing this." "No, he doesn't suspect anything." "Tomorrow? I don't know, it's risky." "Okay, but just for an hour?" I leaned back in my chair and stared at the ceiling. Tomorrow was December 26th, the day after Christmas. Apparently, Nira had plans, so did I. Boxing Day dawned gray and cold, with the kind of bitter wind that cuts through your coat and settles in your bones. I woke up early and lay in bed listening to Nira's breathing, wondering if she was really asleep or just pretending. At 7:30, she stirred and reached for her phone. The screen's glow lit up her face as she checked her messages, and I saw her expression change. Whatever she was reading made her smile in a way I hadn't seen in months. "Morning," I said quietly. She jumped, nearly dropping the phone. "Oh, you scared me. I didn't know you were awake." "Just woke up." "Sleep well?" "Yeah, fine." She set the phone face down on the nightstand and stretched. "What are your plans for today?" "Nothing special. Maybe watch some football, clean up from yesterday." "You?" "I might go shopping. Return some gifts. Hit the sales." Of course she would, because nothing says post-Christmas shopping like getting dressed up in your best outfit and driving to a luxury apartment complex. I showered and got dressed while Nira fussed with her hair in the bathroom mirror. She was taking extra care with her appearance again, the kind of attention to detail that used to be reserved for date nights with me. "I'll probably be gone most of the day," she said, applying lipstick with surgical precision. "The malls will be crazy. Take your time. I'll be here when you get back." She kissed my cheek, leaving a faint trace of that dark red lipstick, and headed downstairs. I watched from the bedroom window as she got in her car and drove away, then immediately pulled up the GPS tracker on my phone. She was heading east, toward Harbor View Towers. What a surprise. I called Steve. "Merry Christmas hangover," he answered. "Please tell me you're not calling with more surveillance requests. I need backup today, and a camera with a telephoto lens." "Jared, what are you planning?" "Nothing illegal. I just want to document my wife's extracurricular activities." He sighed. "Where and when?" "Harbor View Towers, as soon as you can get there. Give me an hour." I drove to a coffee shop with a clear view of the apartment complex and settled in to wait. The GPS showed Nira's car in the visitor parking area. She'd been there for 20 minutes already. Steve arrived carrying a camera bag and wearing the expression of a man who'd seen too much human stupidity to be surprised by anything. "Nice place," he said, sliding into the seat across from me. "Your wife's got expensive taste in affair locations. It's not her apartment. It belongs to her ex-boyfriend." Ah, the plot thickens. He pulled out a professional-grade camera with a lens the size of a small telescope. "What floor?" I'd done my research. "12th, corner unit facing the parking lot." Steve adjusted the camera settings and peered through the viewfinder. "Got it. And, yep, there's movement up there. Want to see?" He handed me the camera. Through the telephoto lens, I could see directly into Kai's apartment. The curtains were partially open and two figures were visible in what appeared to be the living room. Nira was sitting on a white leather couch, gesturing animatedly while talking. Kai was pacing back and forth, occasionally stopping to look out the window. "They look like they're arguing," Steve observed. He was right. Even from this distance, their body language suggested tension. Nira kept reaching for Kai, trying to get him to sit down, while he pulled away and continued pacing. "Maybe the guilt's getting to her," I said. "Or maybe Prince Charming isn't as charming as she thought." We watched for another hour. The argument seemed to escalate, with both of them gesturing more dramatically. At one point, Kai threw his hands up and walked out of view, leaving Nira alone on the couch. She sat there for several minutes, head in her hands. Then Kai returned and everything changed. He sat down next to her, pulled her close, and suddenly they were kissing like teenagers at prom. I handed the camera back to Steve. "Get photos of that." Already on it. The camera clicked rapidly as he captured frame after frame. "Sorry, man. I know this can't be easy to watch." It wasn't. But it also wasn't as painful as I'd expected. Mostly, I felt cold, analytical, like I was documenting evidence for someone else's case. "How long have you suspected?" Steve asked. "Couple of months. Started with little things, staying late at work, new clothes, always on her phone. Then I found some old college photos on her laptop. Kai was in a bunch of them." "And you never confronted her?" "What would be the point? She would have just gotten better at hiding it." I watched Nira's car through the coffee shop window. "This way, I get everything I need for the divorce." "Is that all you want? A divorce?" I looked at him. Steve had been married for 18 years, had 3 kids and a mortgage, and all the complications that come with a life built on trust and shared responsibility. He couldn't understand what it felt like to discover that the foundation of your world was rotten. "I want her to understand what she's lost," I said finally. "I want her to realize that actions have consequences. Revenge, in other words. Justice." Steve lowered the camera. "There's a difference?" Before I could answer, my phone buzzed with a GPS alert. Nira's car was moving. "Showtime's over," I said. "She's heading home." We packed up and left separately. I made sure to get home before Nira, settling into my recliner with a beer and the remote control. When she walked in 30 minutes later, I was the picture of domestic contentment. "How was shopping?" I asked. "Exhausting. The crowds were insane." She dropped several shopping bags by the door. Props, I realized. She'd actually gone shopping after leaving Kai's apartment, creating an alibi for her day. "Find anything good?" "Just some things I needed. Nothing exciting." She headed for the kitchen. "I'm going to make some tea. Want anything?" "I'm good." While she was out of the room, I quickly checked the shopping bags. Receipts showed purchases from 3 different stores, all time-stamped after 2 p.m. She'd been thorough. I had to give her credit for that. But not thorough enough. That evening, I uploaded Steve's photos to my evidence folder and reviewed the day's audio surveillance. The microphone in Nira's gym bag had picked up fragments of conversation from Kai's apartment. "Can't keep lying to him. Just a little longer. What if he finds out?" "He won't. He's too trusting." I sat back and stared at the computer screen. Too trusting. That's what she thought of me. The reliable, predictable husband who would never suspect his wife of cheating. She was about to learn just how wrong she was. I picked up my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found Arden's number. "Hey, it's Jared. You still willing to help me with that thing we discussed?" "Absolutely. What do you need?" I want to set up a meeting. Somewhere public, but not too public. Somewhere I can control the situation. When? Tomorrow night. And Arden? I want them both there. Both of them? You sure about that? I looked at the photos on my computer screen. My wife in another man's arms, smiling like she didn't have a care in the world. I'm sure. It's time to turn on all the lights. The next evening, I put my plan into motion. I'd spent the day making calls, sending carefully crafted messages, and positioning all the pieces on the board. Now it was time to see if my opponents would play along. At 6 p.m., I texted Nira from a burner phone I'd picked up that morning. Jared knows about us. Meet me at the Anchor on 5th Street. Come alone, K. The response came back within minutes. What do you mean he knows? How is that possible? Just meet me there, 8 p.m. We need to talk. I watched from across the room as Nira read the messages on her real phone, forwarded from her secret account. Her face went white, then red, then white again. She looked like someone had just told her the house was on fire. Everything okay? I asked from my spot on the couch. Yeah, just work stuff. I might need to go out for a bit tonight. On a Wednesday? Emergency situation. One of my clients is having a crisis. Another lie. At this point, I was almost impressed by how easily they rolled off her tongue. Well, be careful out there. Roads are still pretty icy. She nodded and hurried upstairs. Through the bedroom camera, I watched her change clothes 3 times before settling on jeans and a sweater. Casual enough to blend in at the Anchor, but still flattering. She spent 20 minutes on her makeup, trying to cover the stress that was written all over her face. At 7:30, she left. I waited 10 minutes, then followed. The Anchor was exactly what it sounded like, a working-class bar that had been serving the same neighborhood for 40 years. Dim lighting, worn wooden floors, and the kind of regulars who minded their own business unless you gave them a reason not to. It was Arden's domain, and she ruled it with an iron fist wrapped in sarcasm. I parked across the street and walked in through the back entrance, the one Arden had told me about. She was waiting for me behind the bar, polishing glasses with mechanical precision. "Your wife's already here," she said without looking up. "Corner booth, looking like she's about to throw up. And Kai? Not yet. But I sent him the same message you told me to. He'll show." I glanced toward the corner booth. Nira was hunched over her phone, typing frantically. Probably trying to reach Kai, wondering why he wasn't responding to her messages. "You sure about this?" Arden asked. "Once you light this fuse, there's no putting it out." "I'm sure." She nodded and handed me a beer. "Then let's give them a show they'll never forget." At 8:15, Kai walked through the front door. He looked around the bar like he was entering enemy territory, which wasn't far from the truth. Places like the Anchor weren't his usual scene. Too real, too honest for someone who lived his life as a carefully constructed performance. He spotted Nira and made his way over to her booth. Even from across the room, I could see the confusion on his face. Whatever conversation they were having, it wasn't going according to either of their scripts. I finished my beer and walked over to their table. "Mind if I join you?" They both looked up at me like I was a ghost. Nira's mouth fell open. Kai just stared, his brain apparently unable to process what he was seeing. "Jared?" Nira's voice was barely a whisper. "What are you doing here?" "Funny story," I said, sliding into the booth next to her. "I got this interesting message about an hour ago. Someone claiming to be Kai here, saying he needed to meet with my wife urgently." I pulled out the burner phone and set it on the table. Imagine my surprise. Kai found his voice first. "I don't know what kind of game you're playing, but—" "No games," I interrupted. "Just truth. Something you two seem to have trouble with." Nira was shaking now, her hands clasped together so tightly her knuckles were white. "Jared, I can explain—" "Can you? Because I'd love to hear the explanation for this." I pulled out my regular phone and showed them the photos Steve had taken. Nira gasped. Kai's face went from confused to angry in about half a second. "You've been spying on us?" "I've been documenting my wife's adultery." "There's a difference." The word adultery hit Nira like a physical blow. She flinched and pressed herself back against the booth's vinyl cushioning. "How long have you known?" she whispered. "Long enough. The question is, what are we going to do about it?" Kai leaned forward, trying to regain control of the situation. "Look, man, I'm sorry you had to find out this way, but..." "But what?" But you're sorry you got caught? But you didn't mean for it to happen, but it just sort of developed naturally? I kept my voice level, conversational. Save it. I've heard every excuse in the book. So what do you want? Kai asked. Money? You want me to disappear? I laughed, and the sound made both of them flinch. Money? What would I do with your money, Kai? Buy back 6 years of marriage? Purchase a wife who actually loves me? Nira started crying then, quiet tears that streaked her makeup and made her look younger and more vulnerable. Once upon a time, those tears would have broken my heart. Now they just annoyed me. I do love you, she said. Jared, I do. This thing with Kai, it doesn't mean anything. Doesn't mean anything? Kai looked genuinely offended. We've been planning to... Shut up, Nira hissed at him. Just shut up. Planning to what? I asked. Run away together? Leave me for the insurance money? What was...